All right, we're glad that you've joined us today. We are going to be talking about Enneagram today. Carissa is going to give us all the details of what we need to know. And if you need to take the test to find out what number you are, then you need to stop here, pause it, take the test, and then come back and watch so you can learn more about it. So you're not too confused if you're watching this recording, okay? Otherwise, is it good to take it, to just listen and then take it? What do you think, Carissa? Okay, she's got to unmute there.
I'm going to unmute myself. I'm going to touch on this during my talk. If you take a test, awesome. If you don't take a test, awesome. Well, you'll be able to figure it out.
Okay, good. Because I'm one of these ones, like, I need to know what number I am so then I can understand what she's talking about. And so she's going to give us all the information about Enneagram in just a second. I can barely pronounce it myself. And so anyway, so the challenge for March is supplements, Super B, multigreens. Maybe you want to try sulfurzymes. Maybe you want to try some other supplement. I will be sending out a information tomorrow on supplements, so you can kind of look further into supplements that we have. But that's our challenge, is to use a supplement every single day or every week to see how your body is handling that and how it's functioning better. In March, we would like for you to order the Thieves Cleaner. If you've never tried it, let's grab this. Otherwise, it may have been a year ago whenever you stocked up on it and you bought it and you're running low. Grab this month. And if you do, let me know and I will send you a booklet, either digital or in the mail, for our members, because we think that the Thieves Cleaner is amazing and there's so many uses. And so, all right, so I'm going to just turn it over to Carissa because she has a lot to tell us and I can't wait to hear everything that she has to say.
Okay, guys. There's so much. I'm not going to tell you everything about the Enneagram. I wish I could, but we don't have like 10 hours to just like hang and chat. So who is familiar with the Enneagram? 2, maybe Pam. I just can't see Pam. Okay, so the Enneagram is a type of personality test. And whenever we're talking personality tests, a lot of us think to like Myers-Briggs and things like that, that hardcore tell people this is how the world perceives you. These are your characteristics. Personality tests are great about helping us categorize ourselves and others. And yes, humans, we like to categorize things. We like to have labels and we like to categorize every little thing into a pretty little box. And the cool thing about the Enneagram is you see what box you're in, so you can figure out how to get out of that box. So an Enneagram test is a good way, but there are several ways that you can kind of figure out where you fall. There are 9 categories or personality types within the Enneagram. So with an Enneagram, you're looking at positive and negative traits about yourself. A lot of personality tests give real generalized things. This particular test touches on some great qualities and some not so great qualities. And the good thing about that is whenever we know kind of our complete self, we tend to have more empathy towards ourselves. And once we really kind of figure out ourselves, then we can spread that empathy into building those relationships with other people. And you can see, hey, I might have a hard time with, X, Y, and Z. So other people have problems with things too. So it's just a different type of way of viewing yourself and then how you process things and make behaviors and actions based off of how you perceive your world. So I am going to show you, this is the book that I am mostly referencing. It is called The Road Back to You. I'll link it after I finish talking, whenever Amanda's kind of wrapping everything up. So this book has a Christian perspective on Enneagram. You can find Enneagram resources that are more from a sociological standpoint, which I think is great and has validity. A lot of times whenever we're looking at personality tests, I think if you are a Christian, it's good to remind yourself that, your worth and all of those things that kind of embody us as a person or as a human, really it always needs to kind of shift that focus back to God in one way or another. So just a personal skew that I have when talking Enneagram. So as we get started, I'm going to start off with person 1 or person type 1. I've got a lot of notes. If I get to talking too fast, someone flag me and I can slow down and back up. I just want to make sure that we get all the information in that we can. So type 1. Type 1 is called the perfectionist. So type 1 people are, I've got all kinds of things bookmarked here so I can not skew too far. They're typically ethical, dedicated, reliable. They are motivated by the desire to live the right way. They want to improve the world. And one of their biggest things is they want to avoid taking on fault or taking on blame. So a lot of times whenever people are saying, well, you need to figure out your type, tests are great, but we all go through varying stages of health and not so healthy, even within our personality number. And so whenever that happens, it skews those tests, because if I'm in an unhealthy mindset, I'm not going to present as my actual number. I tend to present something different because I'm stressed out. So I have some of those negative qualities that kind of poke through. So the core fear of a 1 is being wrong. They're considered that the worst thing is for them to be wrong, for them to be perceived as bad, for them to be seen as corrupt or evil, inappropriate. They don't want to be considered amoral. They are trying really hard, black, white, right, wrong. This, they're going to not run a red light. if they need to get, pick up their dry cleaning and they notice that something wasn't marked correctly, they're going to be the person to speak up, because they don't want anyone to know that they did anything wrong. So they're going to fix it right away. So 1s in stress. If you're a 1, I would write this down. So this is some good, going back to do some reflecting. In a time of stress, a 1 tends to pick up the negatives of a number 4 type. And we'll touch on that in a little bit. And whenever they are in types a healthy or secure mindset, they take on the positives of a 7. So if you're a 1, jot those two things down. They are a member of what they call the gut triad. So whenever we're talking about triads, those are 3 pieces of the 9. And the gut, people who are pretty instinctual, they tend to be that core feeling that kind of runs them is anger. So 1s, 9s, and 8s fall into that. So this book, again, I said it has a Christian perspective on Enneagram. It talks about the Enneagram numbers and the deadly sin that kind of goes along with that number. So it kind of gives you a pitfall to look out for with each number. Because again, you pick up on, these are some of our negatives. This is what I need to go back to. I'm heavily explaining right now. It'll get better. But so the deadly sin for 1 is anger. They have a compulsive need to fix the world. They are extremely aware that they can't and no one else can really live up to the standards that we have been presented. So there's constantly the stress and the anger of, I'm trying really hard to get all of this right, and I know I'm failing. And they're just like, that's so frustrating to constantly be failing at that. So they tend to internalize that anger, and they can be very prone to things like resentment and just kind of like taking things out on other people. So if you are one, some of these things might resonate with you. I'm just going to touch on a few of them. This book has 20 different things for each one. So I have been told that I'm overly critical or judgmental. I beat myself up if I make mistakes. Details are super important to me. I have a ton of self-discipline. I am really disappointed when other people don't do their part. So that's just kind of a brief touch on that number one, which is the perfectionist. So number two is the helper. So the helper, they are in the feeling or the heart triad. So they are very much heart-minded. So they are the people who want to help others. They are very much all in. Their main, like their core fear is that they are not helpful. They're inconsequential. If they weren't there, everything would just be done. Either way, it doesn't matter. That's a very big fear. They can be needy if they are ignored or they feel insignificant, if they feel like they don't get that affirmation and feel needed. That's a very big fear for them as well. So in times of health, a 2, so if you're a 2, I would write this down. In times of health or security, you pick up the positives of a type 4. If you are in times of stress, you take on the negatives of an 8, which is real. It's tough. It's a tough one. So number 2s, they focus, their focus for that, the triad for them in that 2, 3, and 4, they focus on feelings and the heart. But their focus is very outward. So they want to make sure that they are helping other people feel whatever it is that they want them to feel. That is their focus. It's not on themselves. It's not suppressing it. It's very much outward and others. So here are a few things that type 2s, this is some things that resonate with them. So if you don't know your number and you resonate with some of these, look into it a little bit more. When it comes to taking care of others, I don't know how or when to say no. I care a great deal about what other people think of me. I am often, whenever I'm tired, I often feel like people take me for granted. I feel angry and conflicted when my needs conflict with others. There's some of that 8 coming out. So I know a lot of 2s. I also know that it is pretty common if you are raised in a pretty conservative household, you go to church, you are really taught that it's important to reach out and to be helpful. A lot of people, especially women and moms, they tend to test too, even though they're not. So you've got to go back to that core fear and the reason behind your action, not necessarily your actions. Because a 1 might think that they're a 2, but their reason for being a 2, like their reason behind helping others, is because they're supposed to do right. You're supposed to help people. So that's a 1's reason for helping people, if that makes sense. So a type 3 is what they call a performer. Type 3s are really funny people because they have a lot of friends in like academia. They're, highly ambitious. They have a lot of degrees and accolades, and they strive on performance and getting all of the recognition for doing all of these great things. Those tend to be those three people. So in the heart triad, they're feeling, again, they repress feelings. They have a hard time understanding their own personal feelings because they're constantly performing to meet that need for other people, right? And then they also have a really hard time of picking up on feelings of others because they don't know what's genuine, because they've always suppressed that in themselves. So it doesn't make sense. It's hard to pick up on those things. So a 3, their core fear, which again is one of those things that we need to go back to whenever we're trying to figure out who we are in this scale. Being unmasked, exposed, valueless or incompetent, loss, insufficiency, or failure. So the reasons that 3s are acting the way that they are is because they are terrified of those things. Okay, that's their reason. That's their rationale behind it. In times of stress, if you're a 3, you tend to pull out the negative of a 9. That tends to be where you go in times of stress. If you are healthy and secure in yourself and you've got, your things kind of figured out, you tend to go to those positives of a type 6. Okay, so whenever we're talking the deadly sin, quote unquote, of a type 3, that is deceit. So here's what my book says about that, which, sorry, someone help me remember to come back to 2. I can touch on their sin correlating to it here. So deceit for number 3, they value appearance over substance, abandoning their true selves to project a crowd-pleasing image. 3s buy their own performance and sometimes deceive themselves into believing that they are a persona and not their genuine self. I know some great 3s. This book and a lot of things that I come up and I'm going to be saying, it feels very negative. And the book will tell you people are very, very harsh and critical of themselves. So whenever you speak these negative things out, people will go, oh gosh, that's me. And that feels very heavy to them, but it's also so reflective that it's a really good place to start. Because if I were to say, hey, you are so wonderful and you do all of these great things, and I can list all the positive attributes of a 3, and a 3 might not see it. But if I say, hey, you hide behind X, Y, and Z, and you deceive yourself, and you are constantly looking to please the crowd, then the 3s will go, oh yeah, that makes more sense. So that's why the book kind of approaches it from that angle. Okay, type 4. Type 4 is considered, they're called the romantic or the artist. Type 4s are very in that feeling triad. So they're part of that heart-centered. They are very in touch with their feelings. They go very internal. They go very inward with that. In times of stress, they take on the negatives of a 2. And whenever they are in times of security or health, they take on a 1. So if you are a 4, some of these things might kind of resonate with you. I really never feel like I belong. Some people think that I am aloof, but I'm really just unique and different. I'm not like everyone else, and I'm so glad. I feel like there is always something I am missing or lacking. It is hard for me to settle into relationships because I'm always looking for the ideal. So with 4, Their core fear is being considered inadequate, emotionally cut off, mundane, forgotten, meaningless, emotionally flat, or overlooked. So these people are very high feeling and they want to be acknowledged and understood for who they are. So those very artistic people, like the broody, they get their feelings out, the musicians, the writers, those people who they're able to communicate exactly what they are, which is terrifying for a lot of other people, as you can see by the few that we've talked about before. So those are the people, what they want to be seen. They want their uniqueness to be celebrated and acknowledged. So their deadly sin that they tend to fall into is envy. They believe that they are missing something essential, and without finding it, they don't feel like they'll ever be complete. They're constantly looking, constantly searching for that thing. The envy that they envy what they perceive to be the wholeness and happiness of others. So they fall into that trap of everything else looks great, the grass is greener kind of mindset. Okay, I'm gonna try to go really fast. Type fives, my husband is a 5, investigator. They are thinkers. They're that triad revolves around fear. So they tend to externalize fear. So they can see all of the things that are going on around them. In stress, they tend to take on the negatives of a 7. In security, they can have those positive attributes of an 8. So their core fear is being overwhelmed, engulfed or contaminated, emptiness, intrusion, and ignorance. So 5s are very guarded with their time and their resources. Whenever you look at their deadly sin, it is withholding. They constantly feel like they need to hoard all of their things, gifts, whether they're spiritual, time, money, resources, whatever that is. They hold on to it thinking that they might need it, and it would be foolish for them to give it away, if that makes sense. So that withholding is kind of their problem with that. So 5s, some of the things that they might say frequently or feel, they need time alone. I need time alone. I feel awkward around others. I'm a good listener. I need to be careful with my time and energy. So type 6. Type 6 is called the loyalist. They are the one in the heart triad that they suppress their fear. So constantly just pushing it all down. In times of stress, they tend to go to the negatives of a 3. In times of security, they tend to go to the positives of a 9. Their core fear is being afraid, without support, blamed, underprepared. They hate chaos, they hate uncertainty, and they really fear punishment. So 6s tend to be the worriers and the anxious types of people. I have a very good friend who is a 6, and she can go and sit in a room and she can tell you worst case scenarios for all the things. Like she knows the exits. She knows, she's got a plan for this. If we're going on a walk, she has pepper spray. She's got the, it's like she is prepared, and she is very aware of all of the ways things can go wrong. That's just the way her brain works. Type 7. Type 7s tend to be the life of the party. Whenever you're looking, a lot of people just go, oh man, I kind of wish I were a 7. They seem like so much fun, and they have all of this, all of these great attributes. They're the famous people. They're the super successful people, life of the party. Whenever those 7s, we need to remember that they are in that fear and heart triad. So they internalize their fear. They are constantly fun because they are avoiding the bad feelings. Whenever they're in stress, they tend to take on the negatives of a 1. And whenever they're in security, they tend to take on the positives of a 5. Their core fear is being trapped, limited, criticized, having negative emotions. That's a real thing. Boredom or stagnation. And their deadly sin is lust. They are, not lust, sorry, gluttony. Type 8, we'll talk about lust. So those 7s, some of the things that might resonate with you are, I suffer from FOMO. Anticipation is the best part of any experience. I usually avoid heavy conversation. I am popular. I have a ton of friends. I don't like it when people have expectations of me. They like to have fun. Having fun is their way of shutting off all the other stuff. Type 8. Type 8 is the challenger. So we're back in the anger and the gut triad that we started off with 1. So these people externalize their anger. In times of stress, they take on the negative of a 5. In security, they take on the positives of a 2. Their core is being vulnerable, being considered powerless or at the mercy or of injustice, being harmed, betrayal, weakness, or mediocrity. So 8s tend to be a very, very strong person. They are what a lot of experts say, they are the least common in the Enneagram. A lot of people, the wings will come in. I'll try to touch on that. I'm right on time. But so an 8, something that you could hear, I'm too blunt or aggressive. I welcome opposition. Bring it. Justice is worth fighting for. Don't mess with people that I love. And I have no problem confronting a bully. So 8s are pretty powerful people. They are, if you're familiar with Young Living's, like in the Young Living world, like those color schemes, those reds that are just like no nonsense, they're going to take action and they don't mind ticking people off. Like if it's right, they're going to do it and they're just going to tell people what for. Okay, so 9, we're going to kind of round it out and then I'm going to gloss over some things. 9s are the peacemaker. So in times of stress, 9s go to the negatives of a 6. So they can be kind of anxious. And whenever they are secure or healthy, they can take on the positives of a 3. They are in that gut triad and they tend to suppress anger. Their core fear, being loveless, being uncomfortable or shut out, conflict, complication, individualizing, and complexity. They are, people will say this and it sounds really silly, this deadly sin associated with the peacemaker or a type 9 is slothness. So that doesn't necessarily mean like lazy in a, that physical sense, but once they have a really hard time initiating things because they don't tend to know themselves well enough to initiate things and have some of that authority to do that. They tend to avoid conflict, procrastinate. They don't really think of themselves as important. They tend to kind of mold into whatever they need to mold into to get things done and to keep the peace. Sorry, I'm going to go look at these here. So that's a lot of information, a lot of information. And I'm going to be blunt. I'm a 9 technically. I have a hard time kind of getting, but my wing is an 8, so I can be pretty blunt. Whenever we're talking any type of personality test, I want to remind you that this is a tool, and this is a way to have a lens to look through. This is not a, oh goodness, I'm a 3, and just own all of the negative of those things. We all have personality traits across the board. Okay, that's nature and nurture. It's experiences, it's trauma, it's all the things, right? It's like you're married, like I'm married to a 5, so there are going to be things like not all 9s are married to 5s. Like you have to kind of take a bit of that with a grain of sand, I guess, for lack of a better term. Whenever you're going and you're trying to figure out what your number is, tests are great. Reading books, I would argue, is better, because you will read through things and you will go, whoa, that makes so much sense. That's exactly how I feel whenever I'm stressed out. Or, oh, that makes so much sense, because whenever I am overwhelmed at the grocery store and my toddler, threw a bag of flour out and everybody's staring at me and they're freaking out, and it's like, oh, well, no wonder why I went to this place, because that's the way my personality goes. It doesn't mean you have to act that way. It means you acknowledge it, right? So whenever we're talking about personality, I think that's kind of important. This book, I do love. There are probably 20 different books on the Enneagram that you could look up if you want more information. A podcast that I really enjoy, there's a podcast by Annie F. Downs. She is a woman out of Nashville. It's called That Sounds Fun. That's her podcast. And she has Enneagram Summer series. There's one out that was out in 2019, the summer of 2019. And then she did a round 2 in 2020. There's also a lot of really fun Instagram pages and things to follow. There are a million memes that you can use. Don't use a meme to figure out what your Enneagram is. That's probably not the most effective way to get your information. I really do enjoy talking about it. It's a lot of fun. I probably needed like 45 minutes to legit do it all service, but if anybody has any questions, we can kind of stay on after. I'll kind of pass it over to Amanda. I don't want to take any more time. We're going way over. So.
Okay. I would love to hear if you know your number, to put it in there. I know a few you've already put it in there, but just talking, if any of the numbers you're like, oh, I relate to that, put it in there while I'm wrapping up, and at the end we can come back and chat about it a little bit more. I love the Enneagram because when I learned about it, just like Charissa said, I started realizing like that's why I do that. Like I knew I did stuff. I don't know why I did stuff. And when I learned why I did some of these actions I've done since I was little, some of them like, I'm not proud of that. And so I'm going to work on that now that I know why I do it. So, and help me understand my husband, give him grace. So it's a really good thing to start looking into and learning about. So moving on a little bit. So in 2 weeks, it will be on the 21st. We are going to have our Oli chat again. And what's great about our Oli chats, it is open for any of us to invite people to. We all have those experiences with oils or the supplements or something from Young Living that really impacted us, that made us feel better, that improved our quality of life. And why wouldn't we want other people to experience that, right? Sometimes it's hard to put it all into words for someone to understand how incredibly amazing essential oils are and why every single person in the world needs to understand them and needs them in their life. So that's what these oily chats are, is you get a place to invite people to, so you don't have to have all the words, so they can hear our stories, ask questions, chat about it with us. So please invite people to this. We love seeing new people on there. We have a giveaway every time just for our non-members who attend. So if you have a friend who's interested in oils, you can tell them that they can win something free just by showing up and listening to us chat for 30 minutes. So take advantage of that for sure, and inviting people to that. Remember that we are next month doing the Thieves. So be sure to add the Thieves Cleaner to your Central Rewards order this month, or a quick order. And if you already have Thieves and you use it regularly, look at another one of the Thieves products, the Thieves Toothpaste. If you have not tried that, it will change your life. Okay. I have people on my team who are like, yeah, I like oils. They're okay. Yeah, the supplements are okay. I will not go without that Thieves toothpaste anymore. I'm not joking. I have people who every few months place like a $150 order, stocking up on the Thieves toothpaste. It is amazing. And the mouthwash. Your mouth will feel like you left the dentist. You know that feeling when you're like, it's like silk. It's like the softest thing in the world. That's what the Thieves toothpaste and mouthwash gives you, even the next morning. That's how good the mouthwash is. It's amazing. So be sure to get some of that. Text Molly if you get the Thieves Cleaner so she can send you those awesome little resources. And then this month, make sure you're using those supplements, a new supplement. And I would also love to hear which supplements you have started, if you started a new one this month, and any updates on that. But we can keep chatting as we go through this. But just to wrap it up for the recording, I'm really glad all of y'all were here today. We learned some great stuff. Thank you, Charissa, for explaining all that interesting stuff for us. And it's definitely an intro, so it takes more time to learn more and understand it all. But that was a great place to get us all started. And we're thankful y'all are all here joining us today. And we'll talk to you soon.